Okay.
Yeah.
But there is only one language in which the spiritual experiences have been sort of systematically or however systematically it was possible recorded, and that language is Sanskrit. And he says the use of English terms can create some kind of error. So that's the main reason. Sanskrit is the only language in which this knowledge, all these states of consciousness, all these realities, entities, जो भी है, they have been most uh, numerously formulated and expressed. That's the only reason. ठीक है, 3 people, Harish and Jeeti are waiting to कितना wait करें और it's 8:03.
Let's wait for a couple of more minutes. Anmol, you shared what we read yesterday, and if you see the follow-up article or the follow-up write-up after that in the same sequence is so good because it maps what we are discussing of these 3 states onto the Panch Kosha. So even that is very very insightful. जो आपने भेजा है.
Can read that. मैंने क्या किया था? First, I had given just this letter, considering कि not everybody has so much time. So इसको पढ़ने मात्र से एक substantial clarity आ जाएगी. But then when I myself started reading, I felt कि ये भी, तो इसलिए मैंने वो सारे paste कर दिए थे. Now it is up to people and कितना time हम इसमें यहाँ पे दे पाते हैं.
But the good thing is, Anmol, this is a slightly longish letter. The follow-up letter after this is just about 3 paragraphs. And it maps these three, the discussion that we've had, the clarity, it maps onto the Panch Kosha, which I thought was something that we've spoken about so well. It's a very, very insightful and a very simple kind of correlation. तो बड़ा मजा आएगा सबको आप जब पढ़ेंगे.
Definitely. So we'll just reread this till जो हमने पढ़ा था. Whoever wants, Yogesh bhai, you can read this.
Actually, I'm still out, so I'm not with my reading glasses. So,
no problem.
Dhaval, if you could please read.
Yeah, sure. I'll read from beginning as Anmol bhai said. The Jivatman, spark soul, and the psychic being. The Jivatman, spark soul, and psychic being are 3 different forms of the same reality, and they must not be mixed up together, as that confuses the clearness of the inner experience. The Jivatman or spirit is self-existent above the manifested or instrumental being. It is superior to birth and death, always the same. It is the individual self or Atman, the eternal true being of the individual. The soul is a spark of the divine in the heart of the living creatures of nature. It is not seated above the manifested being. It enters into manifestation of the self, consents to be a part of its natural phenomenal becoming, supports its evolution in the world of material nature. It carries with it, at first, an undifferentiated power of the divine consciousness, containing all possibilities, but at first, unevolved possibilities, which have not yet taken form, but to which it is the function of evolution to give form. This spark of divinity is there in all terrestrial living beings, from the earth's highest to its lowest creatures.
So next, यहाँ तक हमने 2 steps इसके किए हैं. 3 different forms of the same reality. We have covered till now 2 forms. Okay. So now the psychic being is a spiritual personality put forward by the soul in its evolution. The psychic being is a spiritual personality put forward by the soul in its evolution. Its growth marks the stage which the spiritual evolution of the individual has reached and its immediate possibilities for the future. Okay, this is one sentence here. It stands behind the mental, the vital, the physical nature, grows by their experiences, carries the consciousness from life to life. It is the psychic person, चैत्य पुरुषा. नाउ अभी यहाँ पे वो पर्सन बोल रहे हैं, ठीक है. बिफोर दैट इन द फर्स्ट दिस थिंग ही हैज कॉल्ड इट पर्सनैलिटी, राइट. सो जस्ट सो दैट कोई कंफ्यूजन ना रहे, looked at from the point of view of the soul, it can be called a personality, but by itself जो है, it's just आप हमारे अंदर की जो डिफरेंट पर्सनालिटीज हैं, अगर वो बाहर आ जाएं और वो इंडिविजुअलाइज हो जाएं, they will no longer be called, they will no longer be called a personality, they will be called a person in themselves. That's the only thing. ठीक है. Again, I'll just go through these 3 sentences to make sure. The psychic being is a spiritual personality put forward by the soul in its evolution. What was the soul? It was that divine nucleus जिसके अंदर सारी potentialities अंतर्निहित हैं, and which it is the function of the evolution to bring out, as he said in the previous paragraph. Okay. Its growth marks the stage which the spiritual evolution of the individual has reached and its immediate possibilities for the future. Now, this is important to just understand. Its growth, वो spiritual personality कितनी grow करी है, that marks the stage which the spiritual evolution of the individual has reached. So it is really this which, मैंने पहले भी सेशंस में बोला था कि I use the word maturity. How mature is the psychic being in you? So, there's a question. Yes, tell me. No? अच्छा, वो hand raise हुआ था. Okay. So its growth marks the stage which the spiritual evolution of the individual has reached and its immediate possibilities for the future. तो ये determine करता है the psychic being of the spiritual personality. It stands behind the mental, vital, the physical nature, grows by their experiences, carries the consciousness from life to life. Okay, grows by their experiences. अगर इस phrase को हम kind of highlight करें, I said in the session in the Gita कि for the psychic being, it is pure experience and it grows by all experiences. It doesn't matter कि वो pleasurable है या painful है. For the psychic being, it is pure experience. It grows by all experiences. And sometimes the growth of the जो बाहर निकल के आती है चीज, the hidden power inside us, that is more when the circumstances are difficult. In fact, if there is no challenge, then that inner potential will not come out. That is why, we find in the cases of, great people, Pandavas हैं, Shri Krishna का आप लाइफ देखिए from beginning to end. These are avatars, so maybe their example is not so easily relatable, right? But that's what it is. So, what is it? It stands behind the mental, vital, the physical nature. Grows by their experiences, carries the consciousness from life to life. यही जो गीता के उसमें आया था, देहिनोस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारम यौवनम जरा तथा देहांतर प्राप्ति ही धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. कि just as there is for the dehina, the kaumaram, the teenage, yauvanam, youth, and jara, old age. Similarly, dehantara prapti, आपको प्राप्त होती है, you attain another deha. It is this psychic being which carries the consciousness from life to life. Okay. It is the psychic person, chaitya purusha. This term, जितना मैंने अभी तक समझ पाया हूँ, it has been coined by Sri Aurobindo. He said we have fixed on Chaitya Purusha as the Sanskrit equivalent. मेरे को अभी तक ये कहीं पुराने scriptures में मिला नहीं है existing just like that. Is it called Chaitya because it carries the consciousness? Is that so? The consonant is in relation to life. No, वो explain करते हैं. It is the Purusha in the Chit, the essential consciousness. That's why it is called Chaitya Purusha. You could say that because it carries the consciousness from life to life, that is why it is called Chaitya Purusha. But the way Sri Aurobindo words it, we can see that exact जो उन्होंने definition दिया है कि it is the Purusha in the Chit, in the essential consciousness. That is why it is called Chaitya Purusha. But yes, that definition is also correct. It carries the consciousness from life to life. So this is the true conscious Purusha. It is the Chaitya Purusha that way. Okay.
So Anmol bhai, just to interrupt, I just the year you had sent this philological, no?
Sorry, not year. Year means relation, huh?
In relation. So in relation to life, right? So that's why I could this way.
नहीं वो ऐसे इतना मतलब होना तो चाहिए वैसे ही, बट इन रिलेशन टू लाइफ तो है. आई डोंट नो, वो डेरिवेशन मुझे नहीं पता एक्चुअली. उचित वर्ड चैत्य कैसे बनता है, य का वहां पे एसेंशियल मीनिंग तो रिलेशन ही है एज यू राइटली से, बट आई वुड नॉट बी एबल टू से अथॉरिटेटिवली ऑन दिस. मैं नहीं कह सकता. राइट, आगे बढ़े.
या
हाँ. एट फर्स्ट इट इज वेल्ड बाय द, अच्छा, इट स्टैंड्स बिहाइंड द मेंटल वाइटल द फिजिकल नेचर. इसमें अभी मैं गीता की डेफिनेशन पे नहीं आ रहा हूँ नेचर की, वो अभी तक हम पहुंचे ही नहीं है उसमें. इट कम्स इन द 7th चैप्टर ऑफ द गीता, हाउ द नेचर इज डिफाइंड इन द गीता. इट इज कॉल्ड एट फोल्ड. तो अभी यहाँ पे लेट्स जस्ट सिंपली टेक इट, द मेंटल वाइटल द फिजिकल नेचर, बाय द फिजिकल नेचर इज मेंट द बॉडी, और बॉडी के अंदर जो कुछ भी होता है. बाय द वाइटल नेचर इज मेंट द इमोशंस, फीलिंग्स, डिजायर्स, एम्बिशंस, ऑल दैट. एंड बाय मेंटल नेचर द थॉट्स एंड आइडियाज एंड कंस्ट्रक्शंस जो भी होते हैं माइंड के. लेट्स टेक इट सिंपली लाइक दैट राइट नाउ. Then, at first, it is veiled by the mental, vital, and physical parts. अच्छा, now distinction between the soul and the psychic अभी तक उन्होंने draw out नहीं किया है, but जो first sentence था, the psychic being is a spiritual personality put forward by the soul in its evolution. Okay? This is the subtle distinction between the soul and the psychic being. इसके लिए और भी टर्म्स यूज किए हैं उन्होंने, जैसे यहाँ पे किया है, द साइकिक बीइंग इज अ स्पिरिचुअल पर्सनालिटी पुट फॉरवर्ड बाय द सोल. सो द फुल फ्रेज वुड बी spiritual personality put forward by the soul. At other places, the terminology which he has used is psychic personality. इसमें ऑलरेडी साइकिक बीइंग वर्ड हमने देखा है. सोल पर्सनालिटी अभी तक 4 काउंट हुआ है. लाइक दिस, in a slightly flexible way, he refers to the same thing by these different terms. All right, psychic personality, psychic being, soul personality, और यहाँ पे तो लंबा सा एक फ्रेज है, spiritual personality put forward by the soul. Okay, but it all means that thing, that which is growing from life to life, and that which truly determines our level or the stage of our spiritual evolution. All right. At first, it is veiled by the mental, vital, and physical parts. वो उनसे ढका रहता है. Limited by them in its self-expression by their limitations. Bound to the reactions of nature, but as it grows, it becomes capable of coming forward and dominating the mind, life, and body. In the ordinary man, it still depends on them for expression and is not able to take them up freely. Sorry, not able to take them up and freely use them. The life of the being is animal and human, not divine. When the psychic being can, by sadhana, become dominant and freely use its instruments, then the impulse towards the divine becomes complete, and the transformation of mind, vital, and body, not merely there, liberation becomes possible. Especially if last sentence है इस पे, we'll come back. But yeah, at first it is veiled by the mental, vital, and physical parts, limited by them in its self-expression by their limitations. So this psychic being, ये जो spiritual personality है put forward by the soul, ये अपने आप को express करता है through the mind, the vital, and the body. But because of their limitations, it is also not able to express itself fully. That is what he's saying essentially. Manifestations of the in that sense, if you want to say, जो अभी मुझे mind में आ रहा है, simply, very simply, it is that Satyam Shivam Sundaram, right? So beauty or saundarya, that is the manifestation in the physical level. Okay. वैसे मदर ने जो formula दिया है, rather the way she has told, कि the divine manifests in the body, in the physical level as beauty, in the vital as power, in the soul as love, and in the mind as knowledge. This is what Mother has said. But if we, that Satyam Shivam Sundaram, that very,
Anmol, can you
well
please
known.
repeat it? And also, if there is
Yes,
a reference to this, if you could share it, it's beautiful. If you
I'll
could
share
just,
the reference. I'll share. I
yeah,
know it's
okay,
very
just
good.
repeat it also.
I'll repeat it. So she says, in the divine, the divine being manifests in the physical as beauty, in the vital as power, in the soul as love, and in the mental as knowledge. This is there somewhere in the collected works. ये मदर का रेफरेंस आ गया because I just remember it. Here what I was saying was कि जो mental, vital, physical nature है, उसके through the physical nature का जो manifestation होगा, that would be the सौंदर्य, सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम में से जो शिवम होगा, goodness, that goodness of your nature, that would be the vital. अगर हम ऐसे रिलेट करना चाहें तो ठीक है. एंड जो सत्यम है, द सीकिंग फॉर ट्रूथ, हर एक चीज का सत्य खोज निकालना, दैट वुड बी इट्स मैनिफेस्टेशन थ्रू द मेंटल नेचर.
Right. So, Anmol, the last part of Savitri that we always talk about, she says, Guruji says that it's love and oneness. So, love, as you rightly said, is experienced by the soul, and oneness by the mind. That it's all Him, right? So,
Oneness,
those two are the.
हाँ, oneness ultimately is to be experienced by, उसको ऐसे ब्रेक नहीं करना चाहिए. Love and oneness is one thing. Through the
Right.
power of love, you realize the oneness, and true oneness exists in the spirit only. The mind can get flooded by that sense of oneness. Mind, though,
Right.
actually, it's an instrument of division. So, if it remains as it at its own level, it is incapable of experiencing oneness. You understand? तो वो तो जब आप स्पिरिचुअल कॉन्शियसनेस को टच करेंगे ना, देन दिस
Correct.
फंडामेंटल कैरेक्टर ऑफ द माइंड विच इज डिविजन, you cannot help it. That is the way nature has designed it. Mind
Right.
understands everything by cutting it up into pieces and analyzing them. है ना?
Right.
Yeah. तो वो,
So, the soul
हाँ,
gives you the concept or the expression of oneness,
हाँ,
and love, just now of the four, when you said love is related to the
soul.
soul again. Okay, both of them are soul then.
वननेस को माइंड से जो रिलेशन है, दैट कैन बी अंडरस्टूड लाइक दिस, कि व्हेन द माइंड इज डेवलप्ड इन अ पर्सन एंड इज यूजिंग इट, देन बेसिकली द सत्व गुना इज डोमिनेंट. एंड एज आई सेड इन यस्टरडेज क्लास आल्सो, कि द सात्विक नॉलेज, द सात्विक way of understanding things, that is when you see the oneness in things. सर्वभूतेषु ये नैकं भावमव्ययम् ईक्षते अविभक्तं विभक्तेषु तज्ज्ञानं विद्धि सात्विकम्. So when you see that oneness, when you see that it is that one being which has become everything, this is 18.20 of the Gita. तो वो उस सेंस में हम उससे रिलेट कर सकते हैं. बट लव एंड वननेस का जो फ्रेज है उसको, कि लव जो है वो सोल है, वननेस जो है वो माइंड है, दैट वुड नॉट बी, बिकॉज माइंड, एज आई सेइंग अगेन, माइंड इज काइंड ऑफ इनकेपेबल ऑफ रियली गेटिंग इनटू वननेस. माइंड अगर वननेस में चला जाएगा तो माइंड माइंड रहेगा ही नहीं. माइंड जो है वो स्पिरिट बन जाएगा.
True. Completely agree.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah. So, and I had not thought of this connecting Satyam Shivam Sundaram with physical, vital, mental nature. It's just while reading this text it has come. So, you know, at first it is veiled by the mental, vital, and physical parts, limited by them in its self-expression by their limitations, bound to the reactions of nature. But as it grows, it becomes capable of coming forward and dominating the mind, life, and body. Now, I cannot but refer to that thing from the Gita 7th chapter. Gita mein, the nature, the human nature, there, the word that is used is not Manavi nature or Manushya nature. There it is called Apara Prakriti. Apara means lower. Okay. So, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayuhu Kham Mano Buddhirevacha Ahankara iti yamme भिन्ना प्रकृतिर अष्टधा 7.4 में आता है, right? So it names the 5 elements of which the body is composed. Then मन, बुद्धि and अहंकार, this is the eightfold nature. फिर वो उसको और expand करके 24 में करती है in the 13th chapter, but this is the basic definition. तो उसमें वो जो अहंकार वाला part है, that is the binding mechanism for the lower nature. ठीक है? तो वो तब तक, जब तक वो रहता है, तब तक the psychic being truly cannot come into its own. जो सेंटेंस यहाँ पे श्री अरविंदो ने लिखा है the psychic being becomes capable of coming forward and dominating the mind, life, and body. This implies that the ego is slowly but surely getting removed from the throne, and the psychic being, which is the true king of the system, that is occupying. That is the rightful that is the rightful thing which should govern our consciousness and not the ego. ये पहले इस भाषा में बोला गया था कि the ego has to be dethroned and the psychic being has to replace it. The same thing he's saying here in this language, that it becomes capable of coming forward and dominating the mind, life, and body. Because by themselves, जो mind, life, and body हैं, that is how they are constituted. They are shot through with the sense of egoism. Body के अंदर वो सबसे ज्यादा है, भाई मेरी अलग बॉडी, वो अलग बॉडी. तो अगर यही सेंस नहीं होगा तो बॉडी बॉडी कैसे रहेगी? सोचने वाली बात है ना. ईगो का मतलब होता है पृथकता. ईगो सिंपली मीन सेपरेटनेस, नथिंग एल्स. तो इफ यू डोंट फील सेपरेट फ्रॉम अदर बॉडीज, हाउ विल द बॉडी एग्जिस्ट? Then the two bodies, they will just melt into each other. So that is why, Ramakrishna Paramhans ki I'll just finish this and I'll just give this example and then
sure,
do this thing.
Sure.
So Sri Ramakrishna was a great bhakta. So there is an incident quoted from his life that वो मतलब जा रहे थे कहीं and he saw that a horse was being whipped by the, जो whip होता था उससे, and he got the marks on his own body. Now why did that happen? Because उनका even जो physical consciousness है उसके अंदर जो psychic consciousness है, that which is carrying that oneness inherent in it, वो इतना ज़्यादा आ चुका था कि he even got the marks on his own body. I'm not saying that ये होगा and therefore we should be scared of. It does not mean that. It's an extreme example. He was an avatar. He was not a normal human being. All the actions of these people, they are meant to serve as an example for humanity. So that is what. Hanji, tell me.
Yeah, Anmol, you clubbed intellect also as a prakriti.
Yes, exactly.
And intellect, when we listen to any scripture, the intellect is what enables us to agree that we may not be experiencing oneness, but that is the actual reality. When you listen to a scripture like the Gita or Isha, that intellect is already aware. So it is not controlled by the ego. I personally feel that when you club the intellect along with the ego, you are assuming that it is that intellect which is ego driven. But
I am not clubbing it. It is the Gita which does it, and this knowledge comes to it from the Sankhya. No, we can discuss it. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kham mano buddhi revacha ahankar iti yamme bhinna prakriti. Now I may tell you कि जो बुद्धि जिसको बोलते हैं ना सांख्य में, from that's where the word comes from. It has two roles. अच्छा, what is intellect? One of the words for intellect in English, discrimination, isn't it? वो discriminate का दूसरा मीनिंग क्या होता है? डिस्क्रिमिनेट करना कि ये ऐसा है वो वैसा है, वो उसका लोअर मीनिंग है, सेकेंडरी मीनिंग है. बट इंटेलेक्ट का काम ही यही है, टू सेपरेट द गुड फ्रॉम द बैड, राइट? Whereas what does the Gita say? नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापम न चैव सुकृतम विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतम ज्ञानम तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः. वो जो ब्रह्मन कॉन्शियसनेस है ना, वो गुड और बैड में डिफरेंशिएट नहीं करती है. फॉर दैट इट इज ऑल इक्वल. दैट इज द फर्स्ट स्टेप इन द रिकवरी ऑफ द स्पिरिचुअल कॉन्शियसनेस, जिसको अक्षर पुरुष बोलते हैं, राइट? विच इज गेन्ड थ्रू ज्ञान योग. तो फिर वो बुद्धि के ऊपर चला गया ना ऑटोमेटिकली. सो दैट सेंस इफ यू अंडरस्टैंड, देन व्हाट द गीता सेज बिकम्स क्लियर. But of course, intellect is the instrument by which we liberate ourselves into the higher nature. जितना हमारा सत्व गुण बढ़ेगा, जितना हमारी बुद्धि के अंदर प्रकाश आएगा, the more and more we become capable of, it can be used as a, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, वो spring board बोलते हैं ना क्या, तो it can be used like that. But first of all, one has to brighten one's intellect and fill it with light, fill it with spiritual ideas, spiritual thoughts, जितना स्वाध्याय अध्ययन करके, so that the सत्व गुण की वृद्धि हो. One of the main purpose, of course, bhakti का जो आ रहा है, जो मांत्रिक पावर श्री अरविंदो की है, see there is so much power in these words. Simply these words, they can liberate you and you can go into some kind of trance, some kind of experience can happen to you. This is the power, and if this was not there, then there was no real point in reading great spiritual beings like श्री अरविंदो. बट वो तो उसका गिफ्ट ऑफ द डिवाइन है. बट अगर उतना नहीं हो रहा है, इफ दैट इज नॉट हैपनिंग, द मिनिमम दैट शुड हैपन इज दैट द सत्व गुण की वृद्धि होनी चाहिए through these sessions. That intellectual clarity, that prakasha from within must come, so that like that. Just I'm mentioning this.
Perfect. Makes absolute sense.
Right? So dominating mind, life, and body. In the ordinary man, it still depends on them for expression and is not able to take them up and freely use them. Okay? It is too much shot through with the sense of egoism. वो चाहते हुए and वो develop ही नहीं हुआ है उतना. The psychic being is kind of frustrated. It is not able to. We also feel this. There is this inner voice in us, you know, it tells us to do things, but we are not able to. And then we can feel that disappointment within ourselves. This is a common experience of everybody. We do not have the courage to take the plunge or to follow what the heart is saying, like that. And then that voice kind of sinks within itself. It gets disappointed. And it does not insist. वो केवल indicate, suggest करती है, not too many times also. And if it is not listened to, then it kind of just retires and waits. It waits for the more maturity to come in the nature. And then होना तो वही है जो वो बोल रहा है, जो divine आपके अंदर का बोल रहा है. Right? There is something in Dhaval's, in life's extreme situations, can the psychic override ego? Yes. Yes. In fact, these are the moments जो कि आपको even future births में याद रह सकते हैं. Because that was the time when the psychic being suddenly had to intervene. And that's why, you know, you are you remember these. Psychic memories are the ones which are carried forward. It can override, yes. That is, see, because it is the true king. Ego is simply its regent, kind of. Okay. So the regent can never truly, in that sense, uh, pretend to or be the actual king. तो वो जब वो absolute necessity होगा तो वो psychic being override कर जाएगा. But वो जब कोई critical situation होगी तो like a savior thing. Because it does not impose, it waits for the nature. वो धीरे धीरे वेट करता है और परिपक्व होने का. ठीक है. It will prompt you towards doing some kind of. अभी वो इसमें sentence आने वाला है. We'll come to that. ठीक है.
Yeah, that really helps because you also mentioned inner voice. Can you elaborate on that? How do you know that your inner voice is your psychic?
And when I was saying it, yeah, when I was saying it,
because it happens many a times. Not only if we don't
inner
obey, but
voice में one
there
has
is a
to
very
also
strong
that
voice. There is a
अंदर
very
feel
strong.
करना पड़ता है. You have to feel it because inner voices can be mental, vital, physical also. It can be part of the inner being, not the inmost soul. And it can be some negative voice also जो आपको misguide करने के लिए लगी हुई है. So, but what I mean is कि वो एक inner voice है, you know it, पता है वही जो discriminate कि ये सच है. You know it intuitively that it is true. And अब truth का क्या proof है? The truth is its own proof. You know that way. But वो discrimination develop करना पड़ेगा. उसका एक सिंपल सा जो है कि इट हैज टू बी सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम. दिस इज लाइक वन ऑफ, इज इट ट्रू, इज इट ब्यूटिफुल, इज इट गुड, इज इट लीडिंग टू समथिंग गुड, इज इट हैविंग दैट सेंस ऑफ ब्यूटी इन इट. सच बता रहा हूँ, इट्स अ, दिस फॉर्मूला इज रियली रियली वेरी हेल्पफुल. ऑफ कोर्स uska the answer to your question is कि you have to become more sensitive and you have to discriminate. For that, that inward going sadhana and some kind of yoga sadhana has to be done. Then only you can clearly distinguish that this is a, and one of the things, simplicity. The more, we remain simple, not complicate life too much. In that simplicity, the psychic being is able to, make itself heard. Simplicity is one of the keys actually.
Yeah, I like that because वही उससे ही पता चलता है. Yeah, thanks. That helps. That really helps. Yeah.
And ego is what which makes life complex. जबरदस्ती वो कॉम्प्लिकेट करते. इट्स ट्रू दैट देयर इज अ ग्रेट रिचनेस ऑफ कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इन द होल क्रिएशन. ऐसा नहीं है. दैट इज व्हाई Sri Aurobindo has written so many books to unravel all that richness of creation, right, at all levels. But it is true that ego, because it is living in ignorance, that is why it tends to complicate things. The psychic being is living in the truth, तो उसके लिए सब कुछ बहुत सिंपल है. One of the names of Shiva जो भोलेनाथ होता है कि very simple, very innocent. It's not just ऐसे बोलने के लिए वो नाम रखा हुआ. There is a deep spiritual meaning behind that. वो signify करता है कि the truth जो सत्यम शिवम है, it is actually innocent. It is quite simple actually. It's not something very complicated. Right? चलो next. So simplicity, mother बहुत बोलती हैं इसके बारे में. एक जगह पे वो कहती हैं कि whenever the avatar has come, it is the simple people, who have recognized him. जो वो इंटेलेक्चुअलाइज करने में लगे रहे, बस वो इंटेलेक्चुअलाइज करने में ही लगे रहे. दे वर नॉट एबल टू रिकॉग्नाइज द डिवाइन. शी सेज दिस. Okay, so in the ordinary man, it still depends on them for expression, is not able to take them up and freely use them. The life of the being is animal and human, not divine. Most of the time our life is like this, animal and human. और वो भी एनिमैलिटी का भी एक सर्टन पार्ट रहता है. वही becoming more sattvic is becoming more human. And Manobhava is what the Veda says. First become a human being. Divinity का element है, I don't doubt, I don't deny. the divine mind is there in all human beings. वही हमको encourage करता है to know ourselves. But these two things are there, and they have to be subdued by the divine part in us, right? Transformed, actually, not subdued. When the psychic being, now this, when the psychic being can by sadhana become dominant. आपकी जो भी आपके मन में साधना की परिभाषा, it can be anything for anybody, it doesn't matter. ठीक है? Chanting a mantra, thinking of the divine, reading a book, anything which you do in that spirit of sadhana for self-development, for coming closer to the divine. Through that process, when the psychic being can by sadhana become dominant, इससे वो psychic being की पुष्टि होती है. Because the moment you will read all this about the psychic being ना, immediate first question be कि इसको strong कैसे बनाया जाए. This is the way. Any yoga I am saying, don't be too this thing in your mind कि नहीं इंटेग्रल योगा ही करना है और उसमें ये ऐसे करके आपको जो भी ओपनिंग जहां से भी जैसे भी हो रही है, just follow it. If it is bhakti yoga, follow it bhakti yoga. बाकी सब अपने आप धीरे धीरे जुड़ जाएगा. We already have the integral idea, right? बट कैसे भी करके सम साधना वन हैज टू डू. दिस इज द की वर्ड हियर. अगर हम केवल आई मीन वो साधना का जब तक टेम्परामेंट नहीं आएगा और वो साधक जब तक हम नहीं बनेंगे, तब तक वो साइकिक बीइंग का ट्रू तरीके से इट इज नॉट एबल टू कम आउट एंड डोमिनेट. उसको दैट इट हैज टू, I mean, that's some kind of sadhana has to be done. Basically, this is the thing to be said here, right? When the psychic being can by sadhana become dominant and freely use its instruments, then the impulse towards the divine becomes complete. Then the impulse towards the divine becomes complete. And the transformation of mind, vital, and body, not merely their liberation, becomes possible. ये terms बहुत आते हैं whenever you attend any session connected to Sri Aurobindo. Transformation and liberation. Liberation of the mind, vital, and body means that your consciousness is no longer identifying itself as the mind or the vital or the body. The consciousness knows that it is not either of these three things. These are its instruments. But the instruments can remain unrefined. They can remain in a natural state. If you do not have the idea that what was the purpose of donning these in the first place, what was the purpose of the soul coming into the world in the first place, to make this material world divine. That was the original purpose of the soul coming here. That is why this I shouldn't say idea, but the impulse towards divine becomes complete, and the transformation of mind, vital, and body. Transformation of the mind, what is that? The mind becomes luminous. Basically, you become omniscient. Okay? Transformation of the vital, omnipotent. But that omnipotent is at the service of the divine, not at the service of the ego. Invariably, when we think of power, जो vital है, immediately it catches the idea for myself. No, not for yourself, for the divine. Knowledge के लिए भी omniscience भर गया दिमाग में. There are scientists did make the atomic bomb, right? ठीक है, उसके पीछे भी it's a great achievement of humanity, but it is something destructive. तो बुद्धि उस डायरेक्शन में गई, तो that all that omniscience of the mind, all that omnipotence of the vital, all the capabilities of the body, they have to be at the service of the divine. They have to become the divine's instrument, and they have to be more. This is what their transformation means, कि उनके अंदर का वो जो egoistic element है, वो जो self-serving element है, that goes away, and all these things, they are offered to the divine, put at his disposal. Use them as you need to use them. I am totally yours, right? Not merely their liberation becomes possible. Yeah. Any question or anything so far we have read this paragraph? No? Acha, some other people have also.
Anmol bhai, you mentioned this is liberation. Then transformation would be
Liberation simply means that the consciousness knows that I am not these. It knows that these are my instruments. But transformation means that then you work on even improving the quality of that instrument.
Achha.
No. Liberation और transformation में difference ये है कि simply who is following the ideal of liberation. Liberation is also not easy to achieve. For that also you have to do मतलब साधना, a lot of साधना. निकाल लीजिए कितना लोगों का दिखेगा कि liberated state में है. Pretense can be there, but and there can be a mental liberation. You can have a mental realization. That's simply a mental idea. You have not become that. It's only when you become that, then you can be said to be truly liberated. When you become the spirit. when you're dwelling in the spiritual consciousness, right? But the difference between the two ideals is कि liberation वाला जो है, he will like this is just nature and this is what it is. It is, there is no hope for it, and he waits for the end of his body, and after that, according to the nature of his liberation, जो मुक्तियां होती हैं अलग अलग टाइप की, सामीप्य, सालोक्य, etc., he gets that liberation and he leaves this body to whatever it is. He does not actively try to transform this instrument and by the medium of this instrument, this world where he is manifesting right now. This is a great difference. And then nothing changes in the material world. वो वैसे का वैसा रहता है फिर। एक इंडिविजुअल सोल लिबरेट हो गया, उसकी खुद की मुक्ति हो गई व्यक्तिगत, बट व्हाट अबाउट द रेस्ट? दैट्स व्हाई Sri Aurobindo, संधि विच्छेद and meaning of its consonants, please. The way you explained were consonant. Sadhana ka detailed meaning, please. Detailed meaning is difficult to give. I mean, there are like mainly 4 yogas, which is talked about in Sri Aurobindo's books. Karma yoga, Jnana yoga, Bhakti yoga, and the yoga of self-perfection. So Karma yoga is when you offer your will, your energies, active energies to the divine. ठीक है, जो भी आप काम कर रहे हैं उसको भगवान की पूजा समझ के करना. Okay, and that itself is all sufficient. The Gita says it 18.45 में I think वो बोलती है कि if you स्वकर्मणातम अभ्यर्च्य सिद्धिम विन्दति मानवः, if by your actions you are doing the archana, the worship of the divine, then you will attain perfection. Okay, Jnana yoga में the sadhana is that of contemplation, thinking, आत्म विचार, विवेक, ट्रुथ क्या है, रियलिटी क्या है, मैं क्या हूँ, एग्जिस्टेंस क्या है, that part of the thing, right? And through that atma vichara process, coming to that first, that state of silence, wherein you realize purusha जिसको बोलते हैं, the silent witness, कि ये सब these are all movements of nature. I am not this nature. That is one of the chief processes of the, वो डिटेल में सारा synthesis of yoga में दिया है, ऐसे on the गीता में भी दिया है, so it's difficult to say it in such a small session, but basically यही है, right? Bhakti yoga में there are different forms of bhakti yoga. In the Jnana yoga, meditation is one of the processes. उसमें you can meditate in this center, that is a sadhana. You can meditate in the heart, concentrate in the heart. This is a sadhana. Taking the name of the divine is a sadhana. All these are sadhanas. Taking the name of the divine, वो basically bhakti yoga में आता है. Nama japa and all that. Sri Aurobindo has recommended this. He has given mantras. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arvindaya. This mantra he has given. Several other English में भी हैं. Reading these books is a sadhana in itself. अब मतलब when you really start trying to understand, you realize इसमें कितना concentration लग रहा है. अगर आप एकदम general sense में बोले anything which truly makes you concentrate, that is sadhana. Which truly makes you concentrate. All life is yoga. That's why Sri Aurobindo said that. Like yoga of self-perfection, whatever you are doing, try to do it as perfectly as you can. You are not living for anything else. You are living only for perfection. Essentially. ठीक है? Sandhi Vichcheda meaning of its consonants, please. The way you explained were consonant. Of किसका consonant मैं समझा नहीं. Can you please tell exactly what you want to know? जीती. Sandhi Vichcheda of which word? I didn't understand. Va means manifest existence. She's not replying. Acha, dha means to hold is all I know. Okay. Chalo, we'll continue. As the self or Atman is free and superior to birth and death, the experience of the Jivatman and its unity with the Supreme or Universal Self is sufficient to bring the sense of liberation. But for the transformation of the life and nature, the full awareness and awakening of our psychic being also is indispensable. 1 minute. So, this is a very important sentence here. Very, very important. As the self or Atman is free and superior to birth and death. Okay. The experience of the Jivatman, the individual self, and its unity with the Supreme or Universal Self, the Paramatman or the Vishvatman or simply called Atman, is sufficient to bring the sense of liberation. Basically, जब आपको पता चल जाए कि you are beyond birth and death, then you are liberated. Because all fear is gone now. I am there forever. अगर तब भी liberate नहीं होगा बंदा तो कब liberate होगा? So it takes away all limitation, all fear completely. And nothing else can give you that liberation except this realization that you are that which is beyond birth and death. Najayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavitavan bhuyah ajo nityah shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. 2.20 of the Gita, sadhana pucha tha. One of the sadhanas can be simply to even repeat this shloka and to meditate on the meaning of this. उसका जो जपा करना, मैंने इसका जपा किया है, so I am saying from experience, it has a very powerful effect. It is, Sri Aurobindo has also approved it, right? So, as
Anmol,
yes,
this line is very important because if you really see the Indian way of life, liberation or moksha as understood by most is that when you go through very difficult times in life, आप इतने पीड़ित हो जाते हैं that the moment you experience that oneness, you feel, bhaiya, I want out.
yeah,
So you, because at that stage, are in soul consciousness.
yeah.
So obviously you're liberated, but that is the midway point, which is what I think Shri Aurobindo has been explaining all along.
Exactly.
That the individual soul experience and you wanting to quit, saying, I'm out of all my problems, ab dunya, deen, dayal, sabse main bahar hu. But it is still only a liberation. It's no transformation. You did nothing. You came in, you suffered, you realized your real entity, and you disappeared into that oneness.
Yes. That's
So
where
it's not the complete transformation, but a large amount of Indian philosophy of coming into this oneness is that, bhaiya, ये सब पीड़ा दुख सब हट जाएगा. आप just become aware of your
you
soul
realize who
consciousness.
you are beyond birth and death, and you are liberated. You fix yourself in that consciousness. I am that which is beyond birth and death, but you were beyond birth and death even in the first place. You know, वही जैसे मैंने पहले कहा था, it's like you put somebody into the prison, rather somebody has put himself into the prison deliberately, and then he has thrown the key away. And then after some time he gets the key and he comes out and he starts dancing, I am free, I am free. What does it, मतलब इसका अर्थ क्या निकला? What does it mean? You yourself put yourself in that place now. If we are all the divine in our origin, then we ourselves have chosen to come here. Why have we come here? For what purpose? And for that, the second part of the sentence है. What is? But for the transformation of the life and nature, the full awareness and awakening of our psychic being also is indispensable. Sri Aurobindo's yoga is also known as yoga of transformation. That's why उनका जो stress है कि the first thing that you should try to do in sadhana is the discovery of the psychic. वो ये भी कहते हैं, is not impractical. अगर आपके अंदर वो self वाली opening हो रही है, जीवात्मन वाली हो रही है, जो भी opening हो रही है, because to get an opening in yoga is so difficult, right? Whatever opening is there, follow it. But without the psychic being will awaken. There were people who had attained self-realization before coming to Sri Aurobindo. Two names are coming to my mind, Kapali Shastri and Acharya Abhaydev. Both of them then followed the psychic being sadhana and found it, and then tried to, they followed the yoga of Sri Aurobindo, like that. So, for the sake of conceptual clarity, this sentence is very important. As the self or Atman is free and superior to birth and death, the experience of the Jivatman and its unity with the Supreme or Universal Self is sufficient to bring the sense of liberation. But for the transformation of the life and nature, the full awareness and awakening of our psychic being is also indispensable, because it is the psychic being only which is part of the nature ना. वो तो है ही नहीं manifestation में, वो तो ऊपर है उसके. धवल भाई, tell me.
So two questions I have on this line, right? One, it is mentioned that the experience of Jivatman, तब तक मतलब even if we do the psychic का और वो आगे आए तो उसमें symptoms क्या होते हैं लाइफ के, और उसके बाद ही
आप उतना आगे
जीवात्मन
मत
होता है.
जाइए अभी इसमें. आप केवल जो अभी टेक्स्ट लिखा हुआ है ना, आप उस पर फोकस कीजिए. What the conceptual clarity he is trying to give you. Don't preempt too much. ठीक है?
हाँ
वो
ठीक
आप
है.
मत करो अभी, उससे बेनिफिट नहीं होगा. धीरे धीरे चलते हैं. ऑल योर क्वेश्चंस विल बी आंसर्ड, आई एम टेलिंग यू. अगर ये हम से कर लिया. हाँ हाँ
ओके
हाँ, बहुत ज्यादा एंटिसिपेट मत करो आगे का. You noticed we have spoken, so we will lower your hand in 3 seconds. Cancel. दब गया होगा मुझसे गलती से, मैंने तो दबाया नहीं. Okay, lower hand. True. Next, the psychic being realizes at this stage, its oneness with the true being, the self, but it does not disappear or change into it. It remains as its instrument for psychic and spiritual self-expression, a divine manifestation in nature. At this stage माने the stage when the, 1 second, the psychic being realizes at this stage its oneness with the true being, the self. But it does not disappear or change into it. It remains as its instrument for psychic and spiritual self-expression, a divine manifestation in nature.
This is still not
and basically the
transformation.
full awareness and awakening of the psychic being has happened. That's what he's saying. But if the full awareness and awakening of the psychic being has happened, it does not mean it does realize its oneness, but it does not disappear or change into it. वो विलीन नहीं हो जाता है उसमें. It continues to exist as an instrument for the divine manifestation in nature. This is what he's essentially saying here. आप कुछ कह रहे थे योगेश जी?
So this is where it becomes an instrument for transformation. I think that's what it's implied then.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And ये फिर से मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ. For the transformation of the life and nature, the full awareness and awakening of our psychic being also is indispensable. Indispensable. उसके बिना नहीं हो सकता. One of the sentences which will help for the psychic being understanding and discovery, the natural attitude of the psychic being. मैं देखता हूँ अगर इसी में मिल जाता है इसी पेज में. One second. Natural. हाँ ये रहा. Is it visible? The natural attitude of the psychic being is to feel itself as the child, the son of God, the bhakta. Just this part, semicolon के पहले वाला. So that in you, which feels itself as the bhakta, as the child or the son of God, that is the psychic being. तो ये भाव जब हमारे अंदर आए तो उसको और नरिश करने का, उसको और पुष्ट करने का जो भी हम कर सकते हैं वो हमें करना चाहिए. That is the process by which the psychic being will become more and more dominant and come out. This sentence I have kind of just memorized as one of the most important practical sentences in the practice of integral yoga. The natural attitude of the psychic being is to feel itself as the child, the son of God, the bhakta. थोड़ा सा बैक एंड फोर्थ हो रहा है among the text, but it's okay. भक्ता वर्ड आया है, साधना पूछा गया था. So the real bhakti, as Sri Aurobindo describes, is what is called Shuddha Ahaituki Bhakti. Ahaituki means without any motive. So you love the divine simply because he is he and you are you and you cannot help it. इसी वाले में जो second sentence है, it is a portion of the divine one in essence because you are his portion, you are his child. That is the true bhakti. और जितना हमारे अंदर ये वाली भक्ति जागृत होगी, the more the psychic being will be able to come forward. Very simple thing, everybody knows. Just I am repeating, reminding. Right? I'll go back to the letter we were reading.
Anmol, I'll just add one line more.
Yes, please.
This is the one thing that struck me with all the spiritual journey that I've had, that whatever be the external experience that we are facing from the time we are born, till you don't take it in that, in that emotion that, my Lord, it's you. Even if it's very difficult, even till you don't get into that complete acceptance, you may endure it, you may evolve to equanimity, or you may enjoy it. But till every event that is happening in your life is not accepted, you cannot be the bhakta, you cannot be the situation that you would take this as the son of the Lord. You can only do it where every physical circumstance in your life is taken as prasad. We always talk about prasad buddhi, that, my Lord, it's you. So I think this links it to this line very well. That only when every experience of life is taken in as a piece of experience that the Lord wants you to go through, till you don't come to it. So even if you endure it, to even accept it that, my Lord, it's you, is what gets you to this page. It links these two things for me, at least.
And I'll go back and send that sentence again. ये वाला जो था, the natural attitude of the psychic being is to feel itself as the child, the son of God, the bhakta. And GT's question about sadhana क्या है? So bhakta word पे अगर हम narrow down करें, so bhakti, Sri Aurobindo, obviously, I mean, if it is the pure motiveless devotion, Shuddha Ahaituki Bhakti, that is the best. Okay. But obviously to get there will take a lot of purification of nature. Desire रहती है, ego रहता है, demands रहती हैं, etc. etc. So any kind of bhakti, okay, physical हो, vital हो, mental हो, psychic हो, कोई भी हो. Physical माने whatever you do simply pranam. This is bhakti. If you light an incense, you do dandavat. All this is forms of bhakti. You put a flower in front of him. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. Of course, some kind of bhava है. It's mechanically भी करने से फर्क पड़ेगा because ultimately you are trying to connect to your source. ठीक है? Vital bhakti in whatever form. Devotion कर रहे हैं, singing. All these are stages of bhakti, preparatory stages. Mental. You are thinking about it. You're thinking about him, and आप स्मरण कर रहे हैं all this. And then that pure state where you love him. I mean, you don't love him because of anything. You love him because you cannot do anything else. You cannot do otherwise, right? But the point I'm trying to make here is कि any kind of bhakti हो, किसी भी तरह की हो, it will be a help. It will be a direct kind of nourishment to your psychic being to allow it to come forward, to help it to come forward. राइट, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट है. सुनने में बहुत ही सिंपलिस्टिक और वैसा लगता है, बट व्हेन यू पुट इट इनटू प्रैक्टिस यू सी द इंक्रीज इन द स्पीड ऑफ योर प्रोग्रेस in this regard, right? Simply nama japa can be a very powerful means of increasing your shuddha ahituki bhakti. It can lead you places. मदर के बुक लिखी थी किसी ने, नाम जपा इन द योगा ऑफ ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. ही वाज सिंपली एडवोकेटिंग मा मा मा. आई डिड इट एंड आई मीन जस्ट ओपन्स द इनर कॉन्शियसनेस लाइक दिस. वेरी प्रैक्टिकल एंड पावरफुल मीन्स. ऑफ कोर्स जिसका जो रुचि हो, जो उसको सूट करे, द पर्सनैलिटी एंड ऑल, बट this is like one of the easiest ways of moving forward. Simple as it sounds, it is very effective. Okay, so coming back to this letter, we'll at least try to finish this today. We have around 10 minutes. Starting 8:05 पे हमने start किया था करीब. The bindu seen by you above, वो directly उसको लिख रहे हैं जिसका experience है. May be a symbolic way of seeing the Jivatman, the individual self as a drop of the sea, right? As long as you are the drop, you are just a drop. The moment you merge in the ocean, you have the whole power of the ocean and the whole vastness and grandeur of the ocean, right? The example is given by everybody. The individual self as a drop of the sea, an individual portion of the universal divine. The aspiration on that level would naturally be for the opening of the higher consciousness so that the being may dwell there and not in the ignorance. The Jivatman is already one with the divine in reality, but its spiritual demand may be for the rest of the consciousness also to realize it. Now, this is a very specific to somebody जिसको वो अनुभव हुआ था. We can even overlook this. हमें इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा उसमें जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. What he's simply saying is यहाँ पे हमारे काम की जो बात है वो ये है in this session. The aspiration on that level would naturally be for the opening of the higher consciousness so that the being may dwell there and not in the ignorance, if we have this experience of the Jiva. Okay. But the Jivatman is already one, वो तो है ही है. Its spiritual demand may be for the rest of the consciousness also to realize it, including the nature. The mind realizes this oneness with the divine. The body realizes, Savitri के अंदर lines हैं कि even the body will realize its oneness with the one and all. वो बहुत हाई लेवल का बहुत ही मतलब अल्टीमेट स्टेज है योगा की. मदर वॉज लिविंग इन दैट स्टेज. द सेल्स ऑफ हर बॉडी वर कॉन्शियस ऑफ द डिवाइन. दिस इज व्हाट कम्स इन द book called Mother's Gender. The cells of our body individually they had become conscious of the divine. Our body's cells must hold the immortal's flame. She was living that line of Savitri. You just take example, maybe I don't understand because without experience it's all just mental. The very first inner experience. तो ये सब अनुभव गम्य है. अनुभव नहीं है तो it's preparatory only. The effort has to be made for the actual experience. The aspiration of the psychic being would then translate this demand entirely for the opening of the whole lower nature, mind, vital body to the divine, for the love and union with the divine. What is the aim of yoga? Union with the divine. If for any other aim the yoga is being pursued, then it is not the right aim for doing yoga. पावर के लिए, सक्सेस के लिए, एम्बिशन की परिपूर्ति के लिए, डिजायर के फुलफिलमेंट के लिए, these are the lower उसमें वाला. This is not the real yoga. Yoga is done for uniting with your source, for finding out truly who you are. Okay, that is the real purpose of yoga. The aspiration of the psychic being would then translate this, blah, 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 for the love and union with the divine, for its presence and power within the heart, for the transformation of the mind, life, and body, by the descent of the higher consciousness into this instrumental being and nature. For the presence and power of the divine within the heart. One starts feeling that. That's what he's saying. And for the transformation of the mind, life and body, अभी यहाँ पे शिव अरविंदो का एक जो very typical word है, by the descent of the higher consciousness into this instrumental being and nature. वो उसका अवतरण आपके अंदर होने लगता है of the higher consciousness. That is the whole of integral yoga basically. The descent of the higher consciousness. But that it requires a good deal of preparation. He says it is when the concentration becomes strong, then there is a beginning of experience. तब ये higher consciousness के descent का experience. I can, मेरे को वैसे in that sense I cannot say कि I have felt the whole of peace downpouring upon me and all. But yes, this much very, very hundreds of times. आप समाधि पे जाएं यहाँ पे and you're simply just standing there. You can feel this, this force in some kind of liquid form. You can feel it like this, just coming like this. Several, I'm sure Dhaval Bhai has felt this. आपको feel होती है वो force. You can sometimes feel it trickling down like this. Obviously, that's not the proper experience of the descent. It's a preparatory thing. But वो उसके higher stages में turns into the descent of the higher consciousness. पूरी तरह वो occupy कर लेती है. Even आपकी जो body है उसके अंदर consciousness आने लगेगी. उसके अंदर एक self-existent ananda you will start feeling in the physical consciousness and body consciousness itself. That is the ultimate promise. उसके पहले वाइट एंड आई मस्ट से कि डिसेंट की बात हुई है तो इट शुड बी मेंशन कि अप टिल दिस पॉइंट हार्ट के लेवल तक जो डिसेंट है वो हो जाता है, फिर भी यू कैन फील इट. उसके नीचे के जो 3 चक्र है ना, उनके अंदर देयर इज, मतलब उसमें टाइम लगता है. सो वन हैज टू बी वेरी पेशेंट अबाउट इट. द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन ऑफ द वाइटल प्रॉपर, ये तो इमोशनल वाइटल है. हियर इज द प्लेस वेयर द वाइटल जॉइंस द माइंड. ये तो वाइटल का फिर भी हायर पार्ट है. इट इज केपेबल ऑफ यूनिवर्सल लव एंड ऑल दैट. यहाँ तक तो वो चेंज आ जाता है. It can start happening, but उसके नीचे it takes time. So basically one has to be patient. Patience is very necessary. ठीक है, 859. Okay, both aspirations are necessary for the fullness of this yoga. By both aspirations, ये actually related नहीं है because हमारा main purpose था इस letter में psychic being, soul and जीवात्मन को पढ़ने का. But for the sake of completeness, since we are reading this letter, so both aspirations are necessary for the fullness of this yoga. The aspiration of the Jivatman for the higher consciousness above, ठीक है, and the aspiration of the psychic being for what? For union with the divine, for feeling the love of the divine. Bhakta ka, that Vaishnava type of bhakti, even any kind of bhakti that way, it just doesn't care for anything else. I want to feel the divine's love. मुझे वो ईश्वर के प्रति वो प्रेम महसूस हो, उसका आभास हो. They want bhakti, they pray for bhakti. Give me that bhakti by which I can love you and not want anything else, just want you, not want anything else. Right? So both aspirations are necessary for the fullness of this yoga. The demand of the self on the nature from above, the psychic aspiration of the nature from below. ये बहुत एकदम टेक्निकल में जा रहे हैं जो फेमिलियर नहीं है. आई हैव बीन रीडिंग दिस काइंड ऑफ सेंटेंसेस सिंस 2007. सो फॉर दोज हु आर नॉट फेमिलियर, एकदम लग सकता है कि क्या बोल रहे हैं. राइट? वन हैज टू स्लोली get familiar with Sri Aurobindo's way of writing, especially and the letters were written to disciples. They were written to people who were already living in his ashram and engrossed in the practice of yoga. So some of this may not be so easily understood also. The language is simple, but वो जितना direct तरीके से बोल रहे हैं ना, it may not be applicable for me at the stage at which I am right now. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? When the psychic imposes its aspiration on the mind, vital and body, then they too aspire. And this was what was felt by you as the aspiration from the level of the lower being. The aspiration felt above is that of the Jivatman for the higher consciousness, with its realization of the one to manifest in all the being. Both aspirations help and are necessary to each other. इसमें ये भी कह सकते हैं जो ऊपर यहाँ लिखा था ना कि when the psychic imposes its aspiration on the mind, vital and body, they too aspire. And the sentence before that, the demand of the self on the nature from above, the psychic aspiration of the nature from below. So for those who have read that small book called The Mother, so the first sentence of that book, there are two powers that alone can effect in their conjunction the great and difficult thing which is the aim of our endeavor, a fixed and unfailing aspiration that calls from below, and a supreme grace from above that answers. Right? एंड बाद में उसमें एक सेंटेंस आता है, द सुप्रीम डिमांड्स योर सरेंडर टू हर बट डज नॉट इम्पोज इट, यू आर फ्री एंड सो ऑन. सो इट कुड बी सीन लाइक दैट. ये कहाँ से हो गया लोअर हैंड? ओके, दिस इज जस्ट फॉर कोरिलेटिंग फॉर दोज पीपल हु आर familiar with the small book called the Mother. But the seeking of the lower being is at first intermittent and oppressed by the obscurity and limitations of the ordinary consciousness. This is the state of most of us. वो intermittent रहती है because we are not harmed. Just I'll finish this and we are about to close. Then we can have a. It has by sadhana to become clear, constant, strong, and enduring. It then compels realization, makes it inevitable. Yeah, the sense of peace, purity, and calm felt by you is brought about by a union or strong contact of the lower with the higher consciousness. You obviously had an experience. It cannot be permanent at first, but it can become so. Oh, I'll correct this. By an increased frequency and durability of the calm and peace, and finally by the full descent of the, just this phrase मैं इसके लिए wait कर रहा था, the eternal peace and calm. There is such a thing called the eternal peace and calm, and it can descend fully into us. Full phrase is the eternal peace and calm and silence of the higher consciousness. It can descend fully into the lower nature. Right. So this is itself, I mean, he's writing like this, and there is an eternal peace and calm and silence which belongs to the higher consciousness, and it can descend fully into this nature which I am dawning right now. Yes, Dhaval bhai.
You mentioned about chakras, right?
Yeah.
The heart level tak ka pahunch jata hai. Below that it's difficult. So now when he says lower nature here,
Lower nature mein he means everything.
he means
No.
yeah, he does he
Lower
mean the
nature
lower
se he means
chakras?
apara prakriti, and apara prakriti means mind, vital, body, everything. Okay.
हाँ तो हार्ट सेंटर भी अपरा में ही आ
सभी
गया
कुछ
फिर.
उसी में आता है. Even
हाँ.
ये जो है ये भी अपरा में ही.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Apara is that which is not having the consciousness of oneness. That is how he explains it in the Isha Upanishad. अविद्या उसको कहते हैं जिसके अंदर विद्या नहीं है. और विद्या क्या है? विद्या is the consciousness of oneness. And in the अपरा प्रकृति that consciousness of oneness is not there. This is split. जैसे वो लाइट जब ऊपर से उतरती है तो वो स्प्लिट हो जाती है 7 उसके अंदर. दैट्स लाइक अ वेरी पुअर एग्जांपल. तो उस तरह से वो एक रिफ्रैक्टिंग मीडियम है या कुछ है जिसको क्रॉस करते ही द थिंग स्प्लिट्स. दैट्स व्हाट इट इज.
Okay, got it.
So 9-5. आई नो इट्स जो अपना रेलेवेंट पार्ट था उसके बाद वाला हमने फॉर द सेक ऑफ कंप्लीटनेस ऑफ द लेटर पढ़ा है. सम ऑफ इट मे नॉट बी, मे बी ऑल्सो, वी कांट से.
I had read, Anmol bhai, I had read somewhere that when psychic comes forward, you feel the peace. Is it? तो ये जो peace अभी इधर जो बात हो
psychic is the divine part in you, and peace is a divine quality. So the
of psychic, no?
Huh?
Peace is the divine property of psychic, right? Basically, the
properly speaking, जो psychic की divine quality होती है, that is आनंद. That is how he has explained in the Life Divine. ठीक है?
Not peace. Okay.
मतलब पीस भी आएगी. आनंद और पीस आर नॉट सेपरेट. बट उसका जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक अगर आप पूछें कि कैरेक्टरिस्टिक वो क्या है, इट इज आनंद. उस आनंद के आने से शांति आएगी. बट उसमें भी सिंस वी आर मेंशनिंग दिस टर्म्स वी शुड से द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट श्री अरविंदो एडवाइसेस यू टू एस्टैब्लिश इन योरसेल्फ इज द पीस. आनंद कैन बी टू वायलेंट एंड डिस्टर्बिंग. अगर आनंद पीस के एस्टैब्लिश होने के पहले आ जाएगा, यू मे नॉट बी एबल टू कंटेन इट. यू माइट बिकम इवन बैड और समथिंग. सो दैट्स व्हाई ये जो लास्ट में सेंटेंस लिखा है ना पूरा वाला, द फुल डिसेंट ऑफ द इटर्नल पीस एंड काम एंड साइलेंस ऑफ द हायर कॉन्शियसनेस इनटू द लोअर नेचर. देयर इज अ बुक ऑफ ए स्मॉल वन कॉल्ड बेसिस ऑफ योगा. वहां पे वही कहते हैं सबसे पहले अपने अंदर काम एंड पीस को एस्टैब्लिश करो. द अदर थिंग्स, it's not that you should aspire for ananda, but first you have to build that basis of peace within you very very clearly. अब वो आएगा अपने आप. आप साइकिक बीइंग भी करेंगे. ये नहीं कि साइकिक बीइंग को मैं चेस करूंगा तो मेरे अंदर आनंद आ जाएगा और मैं डिस्टेबलाइज होऊंगा. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. पता है, ये सब हमारा माइंड बहुत मेंटलाइज कर रहा है. Whatever sadhana we do sincerely, the divine is there to give the fruits of that. He is there to make sure that we don't get discouraged. In yoga also, it is the divine who is the sadhaka and the sadhana. We are not even sadhaks. We are not the sadhaks. It is the divine who is the sadhak. The more this consciousness grows, the more things become easier that way.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Right. So, any questions? The others in the group who did not speak, or any question, any doubt? Yogesh ji is there, Harsh is there, Jeeti, Rupa, Swati. Anything? At least this is clear. जो हमारा main objective था, जीवात्मन. This thing, we'll just read those 3 paragraphs before closing, though it's 9:07. Is that okay? Shall we do it?
Yeah. Let's read those. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So who would like to read? I would like, जिसने बिल्कुल नहीं पढ़ा है, कम से कम कुछ तो, इसी बहाने मंत्र जप हो जाएगा एक तरीके से. Somebody would like to read? Jeeti, would you like to read?
No, I would like to read, but which paragraph? Last one you were saying?
नहीं, I am saying just read this
I'm
one.
on the
The
phone.
Jeevatman, Spark Soul wala, second one, third one, and the fourth.
Okay.
यहाँ
Okay.
तक.
Okay.
Just the first 4. I am
Okay.
highlighting
Okay.
this. आप बस ये पढ़ दीजिए जो मैंने highlight की.
Okay. 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 The Jeevatman, spark, soul, and psychic being are 3 different forms of the same reality, and they must not be mixed up together, as that confuses the clearness of the inner experience. The Jeevatman or spirit's self-existent above the manifested or the instrumental being, it is superior to birth and death. Always the same, it is the individual self or Atman, the eternal true being of the individual. The soul is a spark of the divine in the heart of the living creature of nature. It is not seated above the manifested being. It enters into the manifestation of the self, consents to be a part of its natural phenomenal becoming, supports its evolution in the world of material nature. It carries with it, at first, an undifferentiated power of the divine consciousness containing all possibilities, but at first unevolved possibilities, which have not yet taken form, but to which it is the function of evolution to give form. The spark or divinity is there in all terrestrial living beings, from the earth's highest to its lowest creatures. The psychic being is a spiritual personality put forward by the soul in its evolution. Its growth marks the stage which the spiritual evolution of the individual has reached and its immediate possibilities for the future. It stands behind the mental, the vital, the physical nature grown by their experiences, carries the consciousness from life to life. It is the psychic person, Chaitya Purusha. At first, it is veiled by the mental, vital, and physical parts, limited by them in its self expression by their limitations, bound to reactions of nature. But as it grows, it becomes capable of coming forward and dominating the mind, life, and body. In the ordinary man, it still depends on them for expression and is not able to make them up and freely use them.
Take them
The
up.
life of the, sorry?
Take them up. Is not able to take them.
Yeah, it's not able to take them up and freely use them. The life of the being is animal and human, not divine. When the psychic being can, by sadhana, become dominant and freely use its instruments, then the first impulse towards the divine becomes complete, and the transformation of mind, vital, and body, not merely the liberation becomes possible. As the self or as the self or yes, please. Should I read?
I had added this paragraph for completeness. Yes, please.
Okay. As the self or Atman is free and superior to birth and death, the experience of Jivatman and its unity with the supreme or universal self is sufficient to bring the sense of liberation. But for the transformation of the life and nature, the full awareness of awakening of our psychic being also is indispensable. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope it was clear.
Yes.
Uh,
अच्छा
Anmol,
अनमोल,
yes.
yeah, please, Geetik, continue, please.
या अनमोल, मैंने जो आपसे प्रश्न किया था ना
It was
साधना
regarding
का,
the sadhana word का उसका breakup करने का.
या ब्रेकअप करने का, बिकॉज आपने व्यक्ति का बताया था, व्यक्त करना, अभिव्यक्ति, मैनिफेस्टेशन, राइट? सो सिमिलरली कैन यू स्प्लिट दिस वर्ड साधना
I'll have
सो
to
दैट इट बिकम्स
see,
इजियर
I'll have
फॉर
to,
अस?
हाँ उसका ना मुझे रूट में जाना पड़ेगा. I'll have to see the dictionary कि what is the root of
हाँ
that.
जी,
साध या ऐसे कोई रूट होगा. But basically the words connected साधना सिद्धि. Okay, सिद्धि का English translation होता है
ओके
perfection. तो साधना का मतलब है, साधना is
ओके
something which we do for becoming perfect, to attain perfection.
ओके,
Whatever effort we do for attaining perfection, that effort is called
इन
sadhana. Now, this is a very
इन
general
एनी
and
स्फीयर ऑफ
it's a
लाइफ,
very all-inclusive definition of the word sadhana. Because it's
या
quite
मे
easy
बी
to
वॉट एवर
correct
यू आर
the,
डूइंग, मे बी इट्स कुकिंग, मे बी
yes, exactly. Exactly. Whatever we are doing, if we are doing it with an aim to do it perfectly, and as the idea of perfection grows in us, ठीक है, अब जैसे डिवाइन का आइडिया आएगा, और फिर गीता में पढ़ा है योगः कर्मसु कौशलम, कि जो ट्रू एफिशिएंसी है दैट कैन ओनली कम बाय योगा. सो नेचुरली देन some people may not have even the idea of the divine, but in that stage simply their aspiration for doing whatever they are doing perfectly, that will be their yoga, and that will lead them to the idea of the divine, and then फिर भक्ति के through and all that they can even perfect that even more.
It can be both ways. It
Yes.
can go.
But
It
simplest
can
मैं बता
travel
रहा हूँ,
both ways.
the word siddhi means perfection, and sadhana जो होता है, साधना का aim is siddhi. Whatever you do with the aim of perfection, that is sadhana.
Beautiful, beautiful, Anmol. Very nice. Thank you so much.
Yogesh ji?
Yeah, Anmol, we spoke about the fact that you experience, for people who achieve yoga and oneness, they experience first the self in all. That means every entity, as we spoke about the spark, being there in all living entities. So the self in all.
It may not
And
be.
then,
It may not be the first experience of everybody.
no, I'm not.
Depends.
Let me just put the two
Okay.
milestones that we talked about.
Okay.
That you have to, that that is an experience that we are aspiring for.
Yes.
The self in all.
Yes.
And then the next step is all in self.
Yes.
That means everything is in that self, which is the starting point of the,
Yes.
if you see the Jivatman, the way it was described here, that it is residing above, it's beyond life and death, and everything is residing in it, right? Yeah. So these two milestones, the entity that is experiencing both these is the psychic being. Because initially it doesn't even know that it is a spiritual being. It is driven by the three. So when it is in the mind-body complex.
Correct. So when you will discover the psychic being in you, you want to say something more? Yeah, फिर अभी मैं, it's the right time to say.
Yeah. So I was just trying to link these three things, which is the Jivatman, the spark or soul, and the psychic being. Because psychic being is the personality, the spiritual personality that can experience the spark and it can experience the Jivatman.
Yeah.
This is how I thought it made sense to me, but if you could clarify.
No, yes. It is, the psychic being is put forward as a personality by that spark. Okay. So there are three names for the same reality, three forms for the same. So there is no essential difference between them. But then he does say there also कि वो उसको पता चल जाता है कि it is the Jivatman, right? That when basically, very, very simple, when in your consciousness you start realizing that you are beyond birth and death, then you are getting in touch with your true self. Okay. And when you will experience that self within you, that soul consciousness within you, that is what you are calling the first step. कि that self is within everything.
Correct.
आपको, then, I mean, if you feel the Jivatman by definition is individual, okay? But as he said there, the Jivatman can at any moment, because it lives in the consciousness of the unity. So it will no longer be Jivatman then You will no longer be Jivatman. Then when you are having that unity, you will simply be the Atman and you will feel that everything is within you, right? The first step is that the Atman is within me, the self is within me. You can also use the word divine. There's nothing, बहुत एक fine distinction होता है जिसमें arrive करने में it will take some deal of sadhana कि self और divine के बीच में क्या वो hairline distinction है, ठीक है? गीता उसको जाकर के 14th चैप्टर के उसमें बताती है, ब्रह्मणो ही प्रतिष्ठा हम, आई एम द प्रतिष्ठा ऑफ ब्रह्मन. देन इट क्लैरिफाइज इन द 15th चैप्टर कि पुरुषोत्तम क्या होता है, बट उसके पहले कम से कम 500 श्लोक हैं, यू नो. सो एनीवे, सो फर्स्ट द सेल्फ इज विद इन यू, then you realize that everything is in the self. Like a continent contains a country, similarly the self is containing everything, like that.
Right. Beautiful.
And then the third stage होता है उस sequence में जो आप कह रहे हैं, it is realized that the self is everything. It is the self which has become everything. This matter is nothing but the self. So there is a sentence in the Life Divine, Brahman is not only the cause and supporting power and indwelling principle of the universe, he is also its material and its soul material. SOLE wala soul. Brahma ही है, ये material जो है, this substance, this is Brahman. You realize that it is the Brahman, it is the self which has become everything. There is nothing else other than that Brahman or Atman.
Lovely.
Yeah.
The dance and the dancer is also, I think, quite a...
Yes. You realize that they are one.
They are one.
वही ना कि whatever is separating us, that has to be removed. And first वो separation तो वो philosophical और metaphysical language है. हमारे अंदर जो भी ego है, that which is very evident, that which we are clinging to in the name of our individuality, this is not our true individuality. उसका purpose is उसको personality को संगठित करना. But once the personality is formed, the ego has to be dethroned and the psychic being has to take its place. The ego has to be basically completely eschewed. Unless the ego has got rid of, spiritual progress केवल नाम की ही है, in that sense. I'm
so
talking
Anmol,
about very
when you look
forms of ego.
Right. Anmol, when you look at a pure soul which is born as a baby, you're experiencing the princess at home. She is always in that soul consciousness. Her ego is not even built right now. So the earlier children understand they are always in soul consciousness till they are 3 or 4, till that initial ego starts getting built up. They are only in awareness.
Even later. I can't say exactly at what point they start feeling a distinction, but yeah, they're just pure soul. That's why बोलते ना बच्चे भगवान का रूप होते. That's why it is said. That is the wisdom behind that saying, because there is nothing to distort. There is not the mind or the ego is not there to distort the simple radiation of the self consciousness. That is why.
Right.
तो spontaneously उनके अंदर से radiate हो रहा है. I'm telling you, just the simple saying जो बच्चे भगवान का रूप होते हैं, बोलते हैं, सुनते हैं, फील भी होता है, बट उसके पीछे का रीजन क्या है? व्हाट इज द नॉलेज, व्हाट इज द ट्रुथ बिहाइंड इट? दिस इज द ट्रुथ बिहाइंड इट कि वो ईगो और माइंड और वो सब जो आया है उसको डिवाइड करने के लिए भी डेवलप ही नहीं हुआ है. देयरफॉर इट्स ऑल द रिएक्शंस आर वेरी प्योर, all those sort of things. Yeah. Shall we close with silence?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 minute because long session, almost 1 hour, 15 minutes.